we are transitioning from that lover energy into the warrior. All the pieces in our group that we have looked at, we're like, wow, this is where I'm giving energy away. This is where I'm depleted. This is where I need to shore up in those hot spots that we talked about: time, sex, power, money, marriage, health. And now it's like, okay, what's my discipline related to that? What's the value I actually have? What's the outcome I'm going for that keeps those things in check? Not just something I'm trying to get rid of or avoid, because what do they say? What you resist persists, right? So what you're trying to push away just pops up somewhere else in your life. You didn't get well necessarily because you did all the right things. You did all the right things because you got well. Mm-hmm. And that was a huge paradigm shift for me when I started really taking care of people, was to bring them into this paradigm of wellness. And I know the word wellness has been really just trampled over. Pot stores are now wellness centers. So, that word has definitely gone through the mud a bit. But you have to be in this mindset. You have to be in this state of well-being, right? You talk about Joe Dispenza a lot, where, just putting yourself in that state is healing. It wasn't because you did all these things. You did all those things because that is in alignment with being well, right? So often in our culture now, we see men a lot, right? They're reaching for something to get a biohack, a supplement, a weight training exercise, something external to make themselves better. And we were just talking about it before this podcast. It's a mindset. If I'm committing to something like my personal body, then the things I do are just going to be either supporting or taking away from that, right? But it has to start here first.
Right. And, just to use the saying that I used that we were talking about before, as a man of integrity, my values are more important than my desires, right? And, that can be when it comes to looking at hot girls on Instagram, or that can be when it comes to wellness, right? So even if you take out the integrity part, are your values more important than your desires, right? So it's do you value wellness? That's what he's talking about, that mindset of wellness. Do you value health? Do you value strength? Do you want to be the guy that's fit enough to serve and protect your family?
Right.
Do you want to be the guy that's sucking wind because he had to run half a block? If the shit hits the fan, guess which one's going to die first? So, even if it's not a shit hits the fan scenario, because I don't want to, put you in a mind state of fear, but how about being able to play ball with your son?
Yep.
Do you want to be the dad that's fat and has to sit on the bleachers because he can't engage in life? No, you want to be the guy that's out there throwing the ball, running, and just embracing this joie de vivre, this joy for life. And that requires a level of health and vitality. That requires a commitment to your values over your desires. The desires for pizza, the desires for comfort, the desires for habit. But what are your values? What do you really value? By the way, speaking of children, if you're a father, your child is modeling your behavior. So guess what? A fat father will lead to a fat son or daughter every time, because they're learning your habits. They're seeing, your excuses. Like, well, I had one friend that's like, I would go and visit him, and he's like, "Oh wow, bagels for breakfast." He's like, "Well, I don't eat these all the time." I'm like, "Well,
You're
funny
talking
enough,
about
every
me.
time."
Just say it. Just fucking say it.
I was giving you cover on that one.
I'm outing myself.
You're out of yourself. It's like, I don't need, this is just a once in a while thing. I'm like, well, funny. Every time I seem to come to visit is that once in a while. It's amazing how
you do visit once in a while.
Every single time there's bagels there. I'm like, huh. And that has shifted for you, it's a great, and thank you for outing yourself just to be an example for the other men, because you had gotten into the habit of eating for comfort. You had gotten into the habit of just doing whatever tasted good or felt good. And you've changed that now. You've shifted that, and your fitness is coming online like never before. When we first met, you weren't even going to the gym, and now you've changed. You're doing shit that I do. You're like at the gym at 10 o'clock at night because you committed to yourself that you were going to get it done. And that was the only time to do it. Bravo. Like, kudos to you. And how many of you men are exemplifying that level of commitment that Michael is showing right now? It's like, and even with your son, you've recognized, like, what does he want to eat more than anything? Sugar and carbs, sugar and carbs, sugar and carbs. So it's like, wow, I did that. I created that. So now you're shifting that paradigm for your entire family.
Yeah.
And bro, hats off to you. I'm literally taking a note, but
Well, the number
but
one value
that's
for us,
powerful.
yeah, the number one family value for us is natural health.
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, and
Family values,
yeah,
not just as an individual. What are your family values? Have you established that with your family? That's something you've done that I admire the shit out of.
yeah. It's a thank you. Spirituality, natural health, adventure, fun, closeness. All these things because so our decisions are now filtered through. Does this align with our values or not? Am I
Man,
going
how
to?
many? Yeah, man, just let me ask, how many of you have sat down with your families and worked out what your family values are? Powerful, powerful. Yeah, you. I'm talking about you guys listening. If you're still listening to this rant, this tirade on health and wellness and warriorship and
We're
pain
obviously
and
passionate
pleasure,
on this topic.
yeah, if you're still listening to this, guys, have you sat down with your family and said, what are our family values? Because your wife may have a totally different perspective and you need to hear that. Not saying she's right, you're wrong, but like there's a sacred third where you come together. It's like, these are our family values and we are going to uphold those values.
Yeah.
No matter where, no matter what. And how many of you have sat down by yourself and go, what do I really value? And if it's Instagram models, reevaluate, right? Because that's pleasure, that's hedonism, that's distraction, that's disempowering, right? That's addictive behaviors. So, and whatever the drug is, whether it's Instagram or cocaine or anything in between, you only do a drug so long before it starts doing you.
Right.
So, and when it's doing you, it's depleting your life force, your fucking soul.
Yep.
So, what do you value? What are your true values as a man, as a warrior, as an example for your children, as a leader? What do you really value?
I feel like this is a topic that we're probably going to hit on more because this is such an important piece. And I want to really acknowledge that right now, for some men listening, there could be a huge gap between what I really value and where I'm living my life right now. And that could feel like, oh man, that gap is huge. For some of you, it might be real close, totally. And you're on this path. You've been listening to this for a while. You're doing men's work. You have your values laid out. You have your vision, your mission, your goals, all these things. Great. And there's probably a lot of you men that maybe heard these words and haven't done shit with them. And it's time to start in this warrior season because, as Russell and I are bringing you, these downloads, these transmissions, it is in line with where we're at in our Ignite the King brotherhood. In our group, we are transitioning from that lover energy into the warrior. All the pieces in our group that we have looked at, we're like, wow, this is where I'm giving energy away. This is where I'm depleted. This is where I need to shore up in those hot spots that we talked about: time, sex, power, money, marriage, health. And now it's like, okay, what's my discipline related to that? What's the value I actually have? What's the outcome I'm going for that keeps those things in check, not just something I'm trying to get rid of or avoid, because what do they say? What you resist persists, right? So what you're trying to push away just pops up somewhere else in your life. I mean, where have we all seen that in our family relationships and all that? But it's like, oh no, now I'm making decisions based on my values. And in order to do that, there has to be a certain level of coherency in the system. And by the way, one thing you said with the father-son thing and being fat and all that, not only are they modeling and looking at what you're doing on an energetic nervous system level, they are in training to your physiology. I know, as an example, if I'm frustrated about something that happened, my son will then, in a way, act it out as if he was moving the energy for me. And in my practice, I saw that for years, where parents would bring a kid in and said he's having this symptom. And more often the question was, well, what's going on in the family? What's going on in your relationship? You need to be in care. He's just expressing it because they're the most open and vulnerable and sensitive to what's going on in the family dynamic. So kids will express that, and it's unspoken, it's subconscious. And yeah, that's a huge piece to drop in here.